It's a really bad idea in 99% of cases to make excuses for people. I know it can be very tempting, and I've experienced this a lot. It can be tempting to say, oh, they didn't mean it that way, or it won't happen again, this is just one time thing. But in reality, if someone disrespects you or crosses a boundary, it's very rarely going to be a one time thing if you don't do anything. Because if you don't do anything, that's sending the person a signal that they can do that, they can treat you that way without any consequence, without you doing anything, without you stepping back from the relationship or saying, hey, we can't be doing this anymore. Whether it's friendship, romantic, whether it's even a colleague at work, we need to have boundaries and we need to have some kind of consequence when people mistreat us, otherwise they just won't learn. Human beings only react to actions. They really do. And once again, it can be easy to make an excuse and say, you know what, they didn't really mean it that way. But that's how every pattern begins. Someone does a small thing once and then a slightly bigger thing next time, and before you know it, you're in a cycle of them treating you the way you don't want to be treated, mistreating you constantly, and you don't even remember how you got there because they built up to it over time, whether consciously or subconsciously. So the way to avoid that pattern coming in is to just stop it as soon as it happens. And it can be difficult, it can take courage, but I'm not saying you have to make a big fuss about it. You don't have to make a big scene, you don't have to erupt, you just have to make it clear. And sometimes, even if it's not in words, even if you're not saying the words like, oh, don't treat me that way, another action can just be pulling back, not hanging out with that person as much as you used to, or at all if it's bad enough. So the point I just want to make is that we all have options, we all have a say, and we genuinely don't have to put up with anything. We can choose. I've known so many people who thought they were being kind, they thought they were being a nice person by letting things slide, by saying, oh, they didn't mean to treat me that way, they're just going through something, or things will be back to normal later. But it just never ends well. It's not like the movies where people change their tune, they come to their senses and realize the bad guy starts treating the good guy nicely because he just realized that being bad is bad. he found out through the end of the season that he was wrong. It's just not like that. It really isn't like that. Another way you can think about this is that everyone does what they want to do at the end of the day. So if someone's treating you a certain way, it's because they want to. Like, this is the way they want to treat you. Because people aren't asleep. They know how they're treating you. I always say this. If you were someone's favorite celebrity, then would they be treating you like this? The answer is almost always no. I can't think of a time where the answer hasn't been no for this little test I have. And so, if you're the type of person who is more of an introvert, you're the type of person who doesn't have a lot of people, then it can be tough. But I think it's even more important for people like that, because it can be tempting to keep them around. And often, if you're the type of person who hasn't had a whole lot of people in your life, like you're not an overly social person, then it can be easy to not realize what it's like to be treated well. You can forget what it's like to be treated how you could be treated. And so the analogy that I would use is that if someone's starving, any food looks like a 5-star meal, but if you're the type of person who knows what it's like to have a 5-star meal, and someone tries to give this to you and say, oh, this is a 5-star meal, you're going to know something's up, you're going to know. And so I think the key here is making sure that we accept ourselves enough to be willing to look at things the way that they are. Because the deep part about this is that the reason that we make excuses for people usually isn't because we want to be nice, it's because we don't want to have to make the hard choice of cutting that person off, of having to call that person out and actually be firm and stand behind our words if they don't want to start treating us better. It's because that can be hard that we often try to make an excuse and say, oh, it's not time for that. This isn't one of those days. We just have to realize that it's okay. It's okay to lose people sometimes. It's often a good thing. It means we're growing as a person because we're not keeping the same. When we change as a person, then new people usually enter our lives and old people usually exit. It's not good or a bad thing, it's just change, it's just natural. The same way that as the seasons go in a show, new side characters come in and old side characters leave. I'm not saying we should talk about ourselves in terms of like main character and side character, not that kind of stuff, but just in general, the crowd you're with usually changes. That's natural. The same way a bird abandons some of its feathers and grows new ones, I think that's how our life goes. Some things leave, some things go, whether it's people or just things. It's just how life works sometimes, and I think that's okay.